As spawning in the bottom right hand corner of side Delta, we have the French Terran player representing Team Liquid. It is Clem. And spawning in the top left hand corner, we have his opponent. We have the German Zerg player, the red Zerg representing Shopify Rebellion. It is Lambo. Terran Gaming, true. I just realized the first Terran player of the broadcast, and it's Clem of all players, so you're getting a bit of a treat here. Of course, Clem being the best Terran player in all of Europe. Of course, there are some big contenders like Hero Marine and Spirit, but Clem is, of course, nicely in that #1 spot. What I will say, Lambo, he may not be Serral or Rain or True. He is a little bit overshadowed by some of the other stronger Zerg players in the region, but Lambo is no slouch either. Even though Lambo may be, again, one step behind Rainer and Serral, he does have it in him to go toe-to-toe with the best players in the world. Lambo, alongside a laser, they can take it to players like Dark, like Classic, Hero, Clem, and even in ZVZs, we've seen Lambo defeat Rainer. That has happened. I think that happened last HomeStory Cup, HomeStory Cup 23, potentially. I know there were a lot of ZVZs there. But Lambo can spike up. I do think that a big factor when it comes to that, though, is, at least from what I've seen, Lambo seems to be a very strong player when it comes to preparation-based leagues. I'm talking about ESL Masters, for example, where you're given a little bit of time ahead of time. You are aware of what your opponent is going to be, and you're able to prepare and kind of set up these builds and these kind of strategies for a series. When it comes to weekend tournaments, it's a lot more up in the air. It's a lot more on how Lambo feels on the day during the weekend, and hopefully not too hungover. That's another thing to bear in mind. This is HomeStory Cup, and it is more of a carefree environment, so our players are a little more prone to have more of a good time and have a little bit less of a serious tournament. Obviously, they're all playing their hearts out, but you know, players they're enjoying themselves. They're jumping onto the casting couch whenever they can, maybe having some drinks, spending time with fans, spending time with friends. A very different vibe. A lot more wholesome. Wholesome. As we're settling into this, and we are getting into a hatch gas pool, standard opener out of Lambo, going for a third base. Likewise, behind this, we have Clem going for a standard opener himself, going for a Rax expand into a third CC before starport. So very economic, very standard stuff so far from both players, as we're easing into the early to mid game. Going for our add-on stop, getting into Hellion production. Meanwhile, the Reaper does slip in between the bases, looking for a drone kill. Shouldn't find one though, as we do force out a Spore, going for another, forcing out a Gas Geyser. So far, good control out of Lambo, not really losing much of anything. Just cancelling buildings, but not much else. No one has lost anything. Not yet. Behind this, it is going to be that starport after that CC. We're not going for a 3CC 2-on-1 or anything like that, for example. Tech Lab is on the way. This starport is a little bit further back, so this is not looking like an add-on swap. This could be a Liberator-based opener instead. We shall see. There we go. It is going to be Viking first from Clem into, I imagine, a faster stint. Meanwhile, Hellion's just going to be camping that third base, looking to pick off a drone. They don't quite find one, but they do get a larva. Do pick off some of that larva here at the third base, rotating over towards the left-hand side. So far, Lambo keeping up with the rotations, keeping up with his queen movement, is going to be deflecting Clem. As I mentioned before, it is going to be a Liberator opener here from our Terran player. The revelation of this Viking should be enough of a tell from Lambo as he dips in, and he will get eyes on the Tech Lab on that Rax. So he's fully aware that it is not Banshees. And he also will be able to get close enough to see the lack of add-on on the starport. So with that, Lambo knows that he can delay spores and that he can position them elsewhere, and we can see them behind the mineral line. These are good positions against Liberators specifically, otherwise they would be in the mineral line for Banshees. So really good scouting, really good reaction out of Lambo. And, oh, looks like we did have a bit of a pause there for a moment. Looks like there were some technical issues, but we're able to recover. So Hellions are going to be rotating over towards the right-hand side, looking for a dive. Queens are keeping up left and right, though. Lambo not letting him in. The goal here is for the Liberator to draw away the attention of some of these Queens and to create an opening for these Hellions. But so far, we have been unable to pull that off. Behind this, Clem getting his third CC on location. Getting into his 5-1-1 setup. 5 Raxes. On 3 bases, pretty standard setup here from Clem. The Liberator is going to be going straight for that main. This Viking getting 1 Overlord kill so far, but is about to get a second. Liberator has been spotted by the Overlord as well. Ooh, Lambo getting a bit supply blocked here. That is a little bit brutal. Brutal supply block. Hellions once again threatening a dive. So far, good positioning here from Lambo. We'll lose another Overlord. As Lambo is attempting to go into Lingbane Hydra. Okay. It's just taking a little bit faster into that Hydra production. 4th base is on the way. Lambo, he's been able to drone up quite nicely here on 3 bases, but should be investing into that 4th saturation soon. As Clem does threaten a dive, gets 4 drone kills at the 3rd. Very nice, actually. Doesn't lose any Hellions. Gets 4 workers, going to be able to clean up some of this creep. I'm sure. As we come in with our double drop on the left-hand side, diving on top of the Queens. So far, the Queens will survive. They will pull back in time. And Lambo does deflect this army, but the Hellions once again threaten the mineral line. And this is becoming a bit much as we do find the Queens. We get 3. Oh my god. Big pig off from Clem. Taking down 3 of those Queens. Those were the creeping Queens, by the way, which means we don't really have any active tumors here whatsoever. Very little creep to work with, which means the defense at this space is going to be that much more difficult, and Clem recognizes that. He's just rotating everything over towards the south. 0 creep here, 0 active tumors. And Clem can push. Meanwhile, I believe, yep, the armory is done. Hellbats are morphed in. Clem was so careful with those Hellions earlier. He kept all of them alive, and this push is looking to snowball out of control. Bailing's going to be denied. This 4th is under fire. Bailings, they try to roll in. They take down some of those Hellbats, but we barely have any Bailings left. So it looks like 6 of them are barely going to finish in time. And with those 6 Bailings, we should be able to break through. Oh, that's a lot of Hydras. Clem losing all of his Hellbats, losing all of his Widow Mines. We'll have to back off. Ooh. Oh, oh god. That one Bailey. As Clem is being forced all the way back. Lambo overextending a little bit here. Very far off of creep. Clem just rallying everything across the map behind this, getting his 4th CC soon up and running. Again, getting up to 8 Raxes behind this. We do have a double jump into the main base. This is where the reinforcements went. I was curious. Into the main base, distracting Lambo at the same time we dive towards the 4th. More Queens going to be going down. Lambo is going to be forced back. Good target firing here. Even getting some Hydras. Oh my god. Looks like there was a bit of latency going on. Nyal, I believe he works for Take, right? Just maybe some connection issues at the event. Oh my god! Some of these mines do pop off. Lambo didn't have eyes on this, did slip his mind. Here we go, Clem going for a split push. Going for the 3rd and the 4th. Here we go, Widow Mines are going to be burrowing. Oh, that is a lot of mines. So far, most of them get baited out. Lambo going to be able to collapse on this. At the same time, Lambo is able to defend here towards the south, but you can see Clem snowballing out of control. He's got his fourth up and running completely uncontested. And Clem has just been trading so damn well, so efficiently. Really rarely taking any Banelings to the face. Oh, the splits! The Banelings, they clean up some of these Marines, but we get into some of the Hydras again. A very efficient trade. GG gets called. Lambo is broken. And Clem takes game number 1. GG. And that was pretty impressive from Clem. What's scary about what just happened here is that there was never anything really fancy from Clem. It was pretty standard play from him. Remember, it was 3cc into Liberator, into Hellion Harass. A really big part of the early game is that Clem didn't lose his Hellions. Remember, he was so careful with them, dipping in every now and then, getting a couple of drones here and there, eventually able to use them later on with his follow-up medevac push with Hellbats instead to help support his army, and that's when he was able to catch Queens. That's when he was able to, again, make sure that no creep was ever spread towards the south and able to just keep the pressure up and trade so damn well against the Banelings and Hydras of Lambo. And Lambo over time just could not keep up. GG. GG, well played. Just really impressive stuff there from Clem. Again, nothing too fancy, nothing too out of the norm. Not like, say, like a Beyond style of going like additional Raxes early on with Reapers or anything like that. Like, yeah, just straight up play from Clem. Getting into his 4th, of course, and getting into his 8 racks. But here we go. We're getting into game number 2 and spawning in the top right-hand corner of Alcyone. We have the German Zerg player, the Red Zerg, representing Shopify Rebellion down in the series, looking to fight back. It is Lambo. And spawning in the bottom left-hand corner, we have his opponent. We have the French Terran, representing Team Liquid, leading the series 1-0. It is Clem. And speaking of a more Beyond style with Reapers, it's looking to be the case here. Clem going for the low ground Raxes. Let's go. So this time, Clem is going to be deviating from the norm. I'm curious if he's going to be investing into the second Rax. Yeah, there we go. SCV is moving on to low ground. And we'll be working on that second Rax. So it's going to be a 2-Rax Reaper opener from Clem. He has the option to go into a 3rd Rax in the main and go Mass Reaper. That is an option. That is something that both Bjorn and Kior love to mix in. We'll see if Clem does so as well, or if he just invests into a natural base. Now, the goal here, as we do have a Hatch Gas Pool, a standard opener out of Lambo, the goal here from Clem, the goal of this opener, is to delay the 3rd. Is to apply a lot of pressure and make the early game very uncomfortable for the Zerg player, and to delay that 3rd base for as long as we can. Again, it is just going to be a 2-Rax here from Clem. From here, we expand, we transition into a natural, into our factory, into a 3rd CC, and get into a longer game. Meanwhile, Lambo still has to recognize what exactly is going on. A lot of the Korean Zergs are a lot more well versed against this. Like, they're very much so practiced against this, just because this is all that Bjorn does, and all that he did, especially last season. Just 2-Rax variations. The foreign Zerg player is a little bit less so. I say a little bit just because Clem and Hero Marine did adopt this as well. They do mix it in every now and then, but they're not as committed and they're not as reliant on it as Beyond, for example. As the Reaper does slip into the natural, again, going to be dancing with the units here of Lambo. Trying to pick off whatever we can, and it looks like we can get 1 Ling. Not bad. 2 Lings even. Oh my god. He wants the 3rd. Won't quite get it. Second Reaper has revealed itself, and again, our goal here for Clem is to rotate between these bases. We're looking for the 3rd base. We see none. Lambo successfully hiding this drone, by the way. Very nicely done. Has hidden the drone, but again, is contained to 2 bases. As Reapers do rotate into the main base, we have a 4th and a 5th Reaper on the way. Again, we should only be going up to 5 Reapers max. And behind this, 3rd CC. We're double expanding, going for the natural and the 3rd base. Clem looking to get into the mid game. And he's getting a lot done. The Queen's out of position. Oh. He's not quite where they need to be, and it looks like we're just going for the dive. We're going for another Queen. And it looks like we will get it. Big pick off here from Clem. And he doesn't lose anything, by the way. Link speed has wrapped up there, has finished up, and it looks like Clem is getting caught out. At least one of these Reapers is. Third base has been spotted. Oh my god. A really good movement here out of Clem, keeping that Reaper alive for as long as he can. And even though this Reaper is a bit... Oh my god, almost escaped. This would have been its way out. But even though the Reaper goes down, Clem survives with everything else. The other 4 Reapers did make it out. We have a bunker behind the wall just in case Lambo goes for an all-in. Just in case Lambo goes for a Bane bust. And Clem is pretty well secure. I wouldn't blame Lambo for going for an all-in from this position just because he sustained so much damage. His third base was delayed, he lost a Queen, lost a lot of Lings. But this is typically how you want to respond. If you're ever in this position as a Zerg player, double expand. Just because Lambo's been stuck on 2 bases for so long, we need the 3rd and the 4th as quickly as possible to recover. Likewise, gas is now being taken as well. I'm curious if Lambo is going to be going into Roaches. Roaches is definitely an option here for Lambo, but I feel like we probably already would have seen a Roach Warren. With this fast lair, it's looking like Baneling Nest? We'll see. As tech is soon going to be thrown down. As there it is, Baneling Nest is on the way. So a very safe style here out of Lambo. Essentially, he's going to be delaying his Evo Chambers in favor of faster Banelings and Baneling speed. A very safe way to play. Now, unfortunately, Lambo's gambling a little bit here. So basically, Lambo, he's not fully aware of the transition. For all he knows, it could have been a 4-axe. 4-axe transitions are very common after a 2-axe Reaper. So it looks like Lambo was preparing for that. Little does Lambo know that Clem was being very greedy. Again, he went into a very fast 3rd CC and is now getting it up and running. So this safe style out of Lambo isn't really worth it in the end. Just because he's opting to hinder himself a little bit here, while Clem is getting away with a lot more greed. There's nothing really to be safe against. As Bathing Speed is going to be on the way, we do have our 2 Evo Chambers for eventually 1-1. Lambo getting his 4th base up and running. Going to be droning. And now Clem is going to be active. Again, he's going to be keeping his main forces back at home. He's going to be keeping his tanks back at home. And he's only being active with harassing units. We have a double drop on the left-hand side, and we have Reapers on the right. And we do get eyes on the 5th. 5th base has been spotted. Marines are going to be pushing on forward. There are some Banelings in position, but they are slow. Do you find an Overlord? At the same time, Lambo threatening a run-by. As the Reapers do slip into the main base. We do catch the Queens! Oh my god. I'm getting some deja vu. That's 4 Queens going down at the same time. A Ling counterattack here, but we do get cleaned up. Clem did have reinforcements back at home. He cleans up the run-by. And this double drop is getting out of hand. We got 4 Queens and 2 workers as well. We can even fight the Lings. Oh my god. As Bathing Speed kicks in, and Lambo is going to be able to keep up with this drop. But that was a brutal trade. It looks like Lambo did kill a tank across the map. That suddenly makes this a little bit more worth it for Lambo, but still not ideal. As now Clem is going for a split push. 2 active drops. 1 on the left, 1 on the right. And how many Queens do we have? We have 5 Queens, essentially 1 for each base. We only have enough Queens to inject. We have 2 more on the way. Thankfully, Lambo, he's replacing the ones that he lost. Getting up to 7 Queens. Lambo taking a lot of damage here, but he's going to be able to force this back. Good. Target firing. Shaving off those Banelings. They're picking off 3 of them. And once again, Lambo just pulled out of position. This hatchery is going to go down. Moving out at the wrong moment. Oh my god, the target firing. Getting a couple of those banelings trading well against the lings. And Lambo is just having a very hard time keeping up. Working on 2-2. Do we have a we don't quite have a Hydrogen yet, so it's just pure Ling Bane from Lambo. And Clem this time is reinforcing. This time he's moving out with his main army. With Widowmines, tanks, a couple of Hellions to support, additional medevacs. This is no longer just a harassing drop, and we are committed. Meanwhile, Lambo is across the map going for a counterattack. He's catching some SCVs. But I don't think Lambo can stop the main army. Not with what he has. He's going to be denying the 4th. But what about his own 3rd? What about his own 4th base here? Mine's just going to be going off. Good splits here. Good stutter stepping out of Clem. Widowmines though, they're going to be bumping off the target firing. Up! We get every single melee. We clean up the lings. And even though Lambo, it looks like he's going to be able to clean this up, it is not going to be a good trade for Lambo. As he takes down the tank. Lambo will hold. But Clem, you can see him already surpassing Lambo here in army supply. This is just purely off of the trades of how efficient Clem has been. Yeah, even here, catching some of those banelings. And what do we have left here? We have 7 banelings in production, and that is all the banelings we have. There we go, 8 more banelings on the way. But they're getting caught out. No, not like this. The banelings. 3 of them get picked off. Every baneling counts. At the same time, Lambo going for a big counterattack here towards the planetary, but the planetary is done. Hot pickup does avoid those baneling connections. Looks like we can maybe get a kill on this 5th nexus. No. The 5th nexus is going to be left alive. Is going to survive. So go for a dewdrop here into the main base. Only lings? No banelings are left over, which means Clem can take this fight. He can clean up every single ling in the main base. GG gets called. Clem snowballs out of control and will take the series 2-0. GG. GG, well played. A very powerful performance there out of Clem. Lambo was able to keep up for the most part in the in the early game. But in both game 1 and game 2, Clem was able to, again, just show off how fast he is as a player, that he was able to just pull apart his opponent, pick off queens, lings, banelings, left and right at every turn, and yeah, just pull Lambo apart. Really impressive stuff there out of Clem. And yeah, Lambo just unable to keep up with Clem in the end. And Clem will take that 2-0. GG. GG, well played. Well, Clem, of course, coming in as the favorite player in this group. But when it comes to who else makes it out of Group B, still a little bit more up in the air. I believe top 2 make it out of the group, which is brutal, by the way. I mean, that's crazy. With so many players in each of these groups, and only having top 2 is... It's brutal. It's wild. But we'll see. We'll see. Again, Lambo still one of the stronger Zerg players out there, and is going to be poised to try to claim that 2nd spot. As we can take a moment to have a look at what we've covered so far. Oh boy. Here we go. We're 2 hours in and we are halfway through. We just wrapped up our first 4 matches of the night. Lambo took down Drogo 2-1. Again, I mentioned earlier that I was very impressed that Drogo was able to force the ace match out of Lambo and also take down Shadown as well. So yeah, really impressive stuff out of Drogo so far here in Group B. Outside of that though, Lambo, even though he struggled against Clem in ZVP, he had a lot more success here and was looking dominant against Estrella even. I mean, I say dominant. That was a wild series. I recommend watching it. Without getting into too much, game 1 was on Equilibrium, and both Estrella and Lambo raced into gold bases, and in game number 2, Estrella rushed into Skytoss. So, That was a wild ZVP, and even though it was a 2-0 on the side of Lambo, that was still just a very chaotic series overall. So it was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun. We also had that PvP between Drogo and Shidan as well. And that is our first half of the broadcast in the books, but we still have plenty more ahead of us. As we do quickly switch over. Oh, there we go. We have another 4 matches ahead of us here. We're going to be kicking it off with some TVPs. We've been focusing a lot on Protoss and Zerg in the first half, but now we can divulge a little bit more in our Terran side of things. And we're going to be featuring a player that we haven't casted yet, Cuckoo. The best player in all of Romania was in Group B as well. So it's going to be Shidan versus Cuckoo, which, again, Cuckoo is more of a niche player. If you're familiar with the online tournament scene, then we've casted plenty of Cuckoo, of course, on the channel. But if you're only familiar with like the Premier tournaments, then maybe you're, again, a little bit less familiar. So I'm excited to cast more of Cuckoo. He's crazy. It's Cuckoo. So I do think he's pretty comparable skill-wise against Shidan, so I do think that's going to be a pretty close series overall. Then we have Clem versus Estrella, Lambo versus Shidan, and Drogo versus Cuckoo to end the night as well. So we have another 4 best of 3s. So with that, we're actually going to be going on a short break. Now that we've reached that halfway mark, we're going to be going on a short break. I am out of water. Right, it's empty. I'm completely out of water. I am dehydrated, so take this moment to hydrate your hydras, stretch roaches, massage your marines, drain your disruptors, and we're gonna be back in 5 or so minutes here with the second half of Group B. We're getting there. Until then, enjoy the Brood War OST. See you soon.